Yeah, hi and welcome to the eighth episode of BlazQ. It's nice to be here with you again. I hope you had a good week. And what we want to do today is like a we start with our quiz like usual. Today, give me 1 second. So now and open. Yeah. So what we want to do today is I have already started the thing, so and now we are Alice. And it's two. We are Bob two. And as Bob two, I want to join Alice two and I want to start a game. So you see it's now synchronizing and wham, wham. Give me one tiny second. Hopefully I can fix it. Okay. So, and try again. Alice, as expected. As expected. Last try. Better. Okay. So I tried again. Alice. Kind of confused. What happened here right now? Okay. Okay. So now we are in sync again. I can play the game, and as you see, it's depending on which window I'm focusing. I'm a different player, and the other player always can go through. So yeah, um, this is what we are up to in this episode. Sorry for the kind of not working at the beginning. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, back to our slides. So yeah, like we really want to go into our multiplayer games this episode. We quickly jumping, go through our values again. As I said, don't hesitate to ask any question. Feel free to correct anyone, including me. Don't forget what we're doing here is about learning, and in the end, it's also that we're paying respect and attention to each other. And yeah, okay. So last episode we had in total 30 views, 13 views. Um, yeah, we can see there's a kind of a little more than like episode 6, and we have like constant increase in viewership. Um, Still no feedback, and what I think we can see, we have neither an increase nor a decrease. It seems like a steady around a central value. And yeah, um, we'll see. So that was kind of long preparation and introduction. So what we're doing now is like we really want to go into coding. So We're starting as usual, going back here, opening a new private window. And repository, I mean, it's, so here we are, episode 8, open with code. So giving them system kind of small moment to find out that files are missing. Then we can go from there. Yay! I want to, yes, and restore. Nope. One yes too much. I mean, I could create all the files by hand, which is not a problem. It's more ah, it's more like I like the assistant here more. So so again, reopen it with code. Waiting a few moments. Yes, and this time I want to start on multiplayer server, unresolved dependency, resolve them, and everything is restored and up and running. Okay, yeah, the goal is to play the game remotely, and or yeah, remotely connected via the internet. And to do so, first we need to make a kind of transition from the lobby to um, like a session. And during my preparation for this episode, I tried different approaches how to do it, not necessarily easily, but how to do it in a fun way, which is easy to demonstrate and creating a lot of benefit. And I have to admit, I wasn't able to find a way um, to do it like in a yes, I said like in an entertainment and easy to grasp way. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying it's like maybe not the right model here for a kind of this type of event. So we taking some shortcuts during this episode, which I always explain what disadvantages these shortcuts or what consequences these shortcut have. So instead of modeling the entire session we have developed about time, um, um, it's more like we're trying to take a shortcut um, for the sake of a better experience. Not, as I said, it's about learning. It's not about creating production ready application here. So we're starting with our server, and in our server, in our lobby controller, we create a new method where we want to start a session. So as a kind of boilerplate, I starting copying an old function. I want to start a session. Start session. I want to have like start session request. This class doesn't exist, so let us create it. Request add new class. getting rid of requests to make it easier to use in our Blazor application. And I said I want to know which player has starts a session, and based on a player, I can go to lobby and find all other players inside this lobby. So player ID is enough. Um, we're getting rid of these. So if you remember no problem for being late. It's nice to have you back. And yeah, welcome. Um, yeah, what I wanted to say is like we go in here. We want to start a session. So like in a proper implementation, we would send a kind of signal to all players in the lobby, which would mean that they're starting a countdown. So like a game will start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and so on. As I said, we go with some shortcuts here. So we will start the session immediately. And what we do is like we sending via signal R this message containing all the parameters of our session, which we talk later what it is, directly um, directly via the hub connection. So whoever starts a session is not interested in a result. So we're saying returning no content. However, we create like a response here, and the response will not send back via the initial HTTP request. It will send back via the WebSocket or Signal connection. So we're creating a new class, call it. We're creating a new class, call it session start response. This is a response. So the thing is here, we need to have all information for starting a session. And let's start with a session ID. Or, yeah, session ID. Get set. Using system. And we want to have like a list of um, like server-side player overview, which are our players, and a session in our sense has also questions. So like we have the server-side player overview. Let's create another like file here, which is server-side question overview. And we finish our start session response first. So public list questions. Okay, we using system collection generics. Okay, so our response is finished. Now we're talking about our overview, our question. And as I said, we just can reuse. We could reuse what we have already created in our, yeah, there's no need. Not what I intended. I intended to using. Intended to using better. Okay, so now we have our response, and we should have it here. New response, and we want to add, yeah, all of these things. So we need questions. Okay, questions we will just say statically. And the first thing we do is so we set questions, and we do it in a way we have already done it before in our game session. We just predefined the answers here, the questions here. So we say questions should be, and it's not the server side question overview. Just changing the name, prettifying it a bit. So questions done. And we want to have the lobby ID, which is our player register get lobby ID by player ID request dot player ID. So as I mentioned earlier, a good way would to create the entire not not recreate but to create a logic for server side session processing. However, as this turns out to be not complicated but a lot of time consuming, we just say the session ID is the lobby ID, and everyone who stays in the lobby will also stay in the session. And so we say like our session ID is our lobby ID. Again, shortcut here, which is by the way the same is true for the questions. Um, so next thing we have here, it's like our players. This is not a problem. We have like player registry get all players in lobby, and we have our lobby ID. So this should return as we can reuse some things we had already like this one. Ah, just yeah. So we're just returning a list of, and we say ultimately players. Mm, doesn't method doesn't exist, which is okay. So we could generate it. We just get inspiration of get all players here. And now return, we check if um sorry, I mean player ID. It should be like we can start with this one. So if players contains player equals sports, we want to return a new empty list. In all other cases, we want to go to players add player ID. We want to go to the lobbies where we have players and using the same projection here. Difference, it's now not value, it's like x dot name I um mm, just need to get rid of value, and here we are. We don't have the okay. That's an interesting thing. So player doesn't know his ID. So player doesn't know his ID, which is interesting. So let's go from here. No, it's ID. So so lobby. So lobby has a side which has an ID. Oops. So why can't I choose some? Here it is. Magic. Anyway, um, finished what we want to finish. We have our players. We have here. And now, as I said, important is not the getting these low content back. Important is that we're using our hub context to all clients in the group of lobby ID. Here we are, lobby ID to string. And we want to like start session. I know this method doesn't exist yet, but nothing we couldn't create. So let's see, in our lobby client, we're just assuming that, oh, it's a very good thing. I'm just assuming that there will be a method which is invoked as soon as start session is called. And when it does, we kind of giving this model as an input. So here we need to have like a wait, and here we need to have like, yep, okay. So if start a session or start session in this kind of URL is called, we get all information to start a session. Again, as I said, it's like an entire shortcut here. And then we're sending this information back to all our clients which are in the lobby. So everyone in the lobby will start a session. The session will reuse the same ID. As I said, it's not the best way. And yeah, we will still will see all players, we will see all and all questions here. Sorry. Yeah, so we save it what we have done so far. We going into our BlazQ application where we have our lobby. In our lobby, we'll create a new method. Why not here? Private async task start session. And if we don't remind ourselves how we could send data, it's practically here. So we don't have lobby leave, we have lobby start session. And as a result, we have not server leave request, we have start session request, and start session request has our player ID, which is, as you can see, already finished. So start a session is finished. Now we need to put it onto a button, and let's say it should be inside the lobby, which is here. So we insert a new button, type button, class btn, btn primary, start, and we say on click should be start session. Okay, first thing. So whoever clicks the button will start the session. What is important here is, so sorry. What is important here is to add a new handling. So a handling when we receive this method, this start session method. So, and we're just doing it by exactly the same thing. So it's like our input. Oops. Here, our input is like join. I'm kind of confused. start session here. Sorry, our input is there, and it's not player joined, is start session. And at this point, we want to start a new session. Okay, this method doesn't exist yet, which is okay. So we have now time to think about what it means. Oh, start a session already exists. So it's like start a game. Maybe not very consistent naming here, but all comes to the list of what things that we could improve. So task, start a game. If I don't remember the classes, we start responses. And now we want to reuse as much logic as possible. And this initial state, like finding someone in a lobby, which we also had before, but not really thought about it. I'm so sorry. The lobby itself was like where people can add and choose a name and avatar we already had in our like couch co-op mode. So essentially, just can say like um, we want to create a new session. And this time we have already a list of players we have, which are responses, players, and I want to do a kind of projection here just because they have different names and capabilities. So, and we have like um, new player. I want to have like my three attributes. ID should be x.id. Oh no, I'm missing one. Sorry, one important. I'm okay. First, I want to create a list of players. So I select new players and player accepting these three values. So we have like x dot name, x dot avatar URL, and I also want to x dot ID. So, and we have the same thing here. Select finished, game session finished. Okay, so let's fix this here. This constructor was used when we initially start the game, so when I entering my name. And we could also like using it here like ID. I'm copying things here, put ID in, and to reuse as much as possible, I'm just saying this constructor calls the other constructor, and now the new GUID. So we started with copy and pasting, but now we have reused everything here. So now we have like a new player, and because it's select, we still need to list. Okay, and we also say like in our game session, I want to know which is the current player and which is the session ID. So I respond into response session ID. I also need the questions now, and I also need the player ID and just name it here because we haven't really saved it before. So when I start my session, I could use the information here to get my player ID. I can say player ID is session first player dot ID. First player was probably not a method. Okay. So player ID and question and closing. So let us focus here. We still have these lists, this constructor. We have a list of players. We have maybe starting a list of players. We have like a GUI ID, player ID. We have a GUI ID, session ID, and we have like a list of not question view model, also very interesting fact, but we told him we said it's a server-side question overview model. I just want to copy name questions. So here we need to change some things to make it all work. We're starting with, I want to have like a player ID. These values should be public readable, but only set in the constructor. The same is true for the session ID. So we could also, easy, player ID should be player ID. And session ID should be session ID. Also not very interesting. And next step, we kind of not needing the question view model anymore. It has served its purpose, so we can safely delete. I want to leave question view model. I don't need this initialization here because we already do it in the server. So get rid of it. And this serves like question overview. So I need to have it using. Same is true for here. And now I can also start like questions is questions. I don't return this one. And here's also an error. So because both classes have um, exactly the same names of the properties, so there's no other changes needed somewhere. And yeah, so now we can say back to our lobby, that we can now start we have set a session here. By the way, it's not, it's void. And from now we want to use our nav manager to navigate to /game. Okay. And if there will be one error here, and this is easy to fix, here we are. So this thing doesn't exist anymore, like our initial thing. So we kind of creating a new constructor here, which is also a very simplified version. We go to our game session and now I say like I want to have a new constructor, and this constructor just take a player, like first player, and we say players, our list is a new list and has a member which is called first player. So we still can use the game session to transport data between the start page and the lobby page, which is this constructor. Again, also not a very elegant solution here, but I try to minimize the changes we have to do to our Blazor application to maximize the kind of effect we get out of it. So yeah, and what should work by now is um, that we start a new, yeah, we start a new, exactly, yeah, we should start now. If we should now start a game, and it should be the same on both screens. So I think we have done here a lot. I'm going into my terminal. I changing to our um, yep, our multiplayer service. Change directory, BlazQ, multiplayer service, .NET, watch, run. So maybe I have some more compile errors, but I have a good feeling that it's only one or less than one. So we could see page is already loaded. I go back to my example here. Just a now it's locally, as you can see at the URL. I'm still Alice, and this is still Bob. And if I'm choosing the same picture, and if I'm choosing Alice lobby, I see both. Now I can hit start button, and we see. I mean, we don't have the players here, which is interesting, but at least we can see we have both started the session. Yeah. Okay. Let's see what happens here to our players. Um, so there are multiple reasons here which could go wrong, and we stop our watch task just to make sure. So players is players, so can't be something wrong. Um, first player is also working, so binding is working. Um, go back to our lobby page. We taking directly the players we get from the response. So probably something went wrong here with our players, our empty list. Get our players in lobby ID, which is right because we don't enter lobby ID here, we enter the player ID in our request. So change it here. Oops, we change it here. Going back to page 1, which is Alice, and this time I'm choosing a different icon, and we reloading it here. So Alice is Herb, and Bob is better. I'm joining and I'm starting, and now I can see both players here. Okay, this error fixed, and let's start going to the next exercise. So now we have our session, and session is initiated, and both see the same questions, and both see the same game results and keys and everything. So from now it's like really having the couch co-op thing. What we need to do to make it to kind of make our reusage of existing code to maximize it, we split it into two parts. One part will be like we sending our key, just the keystroke to our server, and the server replicates this to every client in the lobby or in the session. So, and because each will handle the key accordingly to our logic before, like in the couch co-op thing, we don't need to change much. And that's the concept how we solve how we adding the multiplayer capabilities into our game. And so by set all of these, we started again with adding what we have already done into the lobby with like session lobby session management and oh, and signal R, signal R to our game session page. So we have our lobby eraser page here, we have our game session page here, and let's say what we have done to enable signal R. We have these two things here, using and these implements. Then we had a hub connection as the object holding the current connection to the signal R hub. Um, a lot of logic happened here. So we have our hub connection. I think this thing is saved into our session. This is also saved into our session. And then we have like our initialize task hasn't changed, but on initialize async is changed. And I just copy it. Then we're getting rid of all pieces we don't need. So it's still true. We don't need the response here. We don't need all of these. What we need is our hub connection. It's still the same. I don't want to build a new hub controller here. So we're still using lobby. As I said, shortcut. Um, I don't have any on methods yet, but I will stick for one to make adaptation later easier. And make adaptation later easy. So we have our hub connection here. So we still need to have like this pause. Explore this pause. And okay, so it seems like one is too much. One is no. It's uninitialized sync. No, it's wrong comments. It's not still C# code. Hmm. Not sure if it's really an error or not. We will see. If we get a kind of compiling error, we get. It doesn't implement the member, but it does. So for some reasons, we're missing a break. This is fine. This is also fine. Hmm. It has to be somewhere here. Ah, sorry, I always thought it was part of the if. Always, entire time. I'm trying. So, um, yeah, so if this component initialized, we join our hub, and yeah, so that's one thing. And the other thing is like our key pressed here. This is our method that was fired or initialized as soon as yeah, as the key is pressed. And we handled all the, if we move to the next question, if we using our nail joker, and again, there's a lot of logic and value in this method. So we just say like, we don't change the handling, just add a new method. And this method is now a sync task and would be like send key press sync. So in this case, we just getting the same argument. We using our hub connection, and this time to send something. And that's why I'm trying to reuse it. So I want to send like key pressed. I want to say who sent it. So it's like our session um, session ID. Yeah, and that's all. I just want to say, hey, this key was pressed in this session. And now, instead of handling here, we're using it here. So key press doesn't exist so far. So we go into our hub, lobby hub. Like we have our join and leave lobby, we just creating a new task, which should have, which need to have the same name, like key pressed. And I'm not key pressed, not satisfied with it. So it's key pressed. We say like string key, and we want to have like GUI ID, session ID, key pressed, and my args.code key, because we have used key here as well. We want to send this key back. That's great. And what we want to do now, it's like await clients group session ID to session ID to string, and let's say like key pressed received. And because it's still something like a response, we're building this tiny model like response, add file, key press response. And was a nice name, but I wanted to create a file, a class, not a file. Was the, let's see, public string key. Yeah, so it's not really needed here. It's more like a thing to make it a little bit, at least it's kind of honestly or generally trying to think about maybe there's more to a key press response we want to show others than just a key. But for now, because we're doing this kind of very simplified version here, and yeah, so this contract or this method doesn't exist in the contract. So here we are, and I don't need public anyway. Now it's there, but we still need to have a task. So key press received. Oops. So just remind them. So if someone sent or he has, yeah, now we doing this, we do something special here. We say like key pressed, it's now this, where we send like key pressed event. And this will be something like handle key pressed, pressed. And our input is now this one, our response. So response.key, response.key, response.key. response.key. So as you can see, nothing has it's still like the same here. There's only one tiny thing we need to do. Private async task. And now I'm kind of running out of good names. Um, so I want to build a wrapper method. Why? Because unlike what we have done before, it's like in focusing, in focusing. So this one here is very important. Um, in our couch co-op, all changes to the UI was always caused by user interaction. I have pressed a key, I have clicked a mouse button or anything. So the UI had always always the possibility to refresh itself, or at least to start the process of detecting if there's a need for changing. Um, However, if we have like asynchronous events, like also the timer, we need to call state has changed just to create or just to say, dear Blazor, please do another render cycle and check if there are potentially changes in your layout. And we could integrate it in this method here, but we see there are kind of multiple different possibilities to leave this method. So instead of adding it to all of these here, we're just calling the method. And as soon as the method has exit, we ask for a um, we ask for a change here. So we're going to this one. We uh, I want to like key press received, which is spelled wrong. Amazing. Um, so received. Oh, okay. And to do so, we have like a sync and await, await. Um, response to response. And as a, of course, key received response. I'm not sure if we really need it or if this is enough. I'm curious. Why? Hmm. Anyway, anyway, um, yeah, not cool. Sorry for that. I'm really not sure why. I need to refresh the window. Anyway, hmm, okay. So was actually not cool. Um, yeah, I'm sorry for the kind of inconvenience caused by not refreshing the window, and I was also not, I was entirely into it, as always. And we will find another way to kind of make it up for it. Anyway, two things here are still, so now we have like our key press thing, we have this thing. I just want to go back to our Razer um, lobby login page. And thanks for noticing, really. Thanks for noticing. I would totally, yeah, I would totally haven't seen it. Um, yeah. So, sorry, initialized. And there was this method like join lobby. So we start a sync. We still join our lobby, despite our session is now in our session ID. Again, it's like lobby and session here. It's, as I said, it's a shortcut. Um, yeah. Um, yeah. Um, so we are here in the lobby page. We will do also, if we disposing it, we will send leave lobby to make sure we leave the lobby and then rejoin it in the session again. So we have join lobby, absolutely everything is fine. Yeah. And if we're leaving a game, we just make sure that we also leave the lobby here. Okay, saving all the files. See if we have some errors here. Um, Namespace string can't be found. Okay, I forgot system. Saving it again. Was never. Yeah, of course it was still like key pressed. We haven't changed it. Yeah, key pressed. We're sending the key on. Yeah, makes sense. And key press handle our key press based on other things. Yeah, so let's see if we have kind of working example here. We're starting same procedure again. So we are Alice and Alice choosing this. We are Bob choosing this one. Um, I'm Bob. I want to join Alice's lobby. I want to start having the same thing here. I'm Alice. I'm pushing the key. I can't see it there, which is not cool. Um, yeah, so it's not what I expected. Let's see what happens here. Um, let's see why we are um, not joined in anything. I can't see WebSocket here. Let me check. Makes sense. WebSocket connection. I'm in a lobby. I'm still in lobby leave. but I don't see other things happening here. So for some reason, connection is not established. So, yeah, so it seems like for some reason, connection is not started. Um, so we should see like a join lobby. So I stop watching the task and I'm using debugger and restarting with our starter sync. What happens here? I'm just removing this line here and we go to the lobby page and removing this one here, just saving. And I just want to try it again. I have a kind of feeling. Um, so anyway, window one, window two. Now you gotta better words. So reloading, reloading. Alice, Bob. I want to start. So it seems now it's not working at all, which is kind of anticipated because they are not part of the lobby. Because it's a new connection and they are not joined to the connection. Again, makes sense. Makes sense. Um, okay, so this is what I wanted to. So this is, we still leave it here, but we go here. So we are on the same session ID. There could be kind of simple reason in our lobby page. Session ID, player ID, session. Ha, here we are. Makes sense because there are different lobbies. So first thing is the session ID. Second thing is the player ID. Session ID, player ID, player ID, player ID, session ID, session ID. We can go back and leave the lobby. We can go back here and join the lobby. It's the session ID. And yeah, because player IDs are unique, or for unique for each player, each ID is unique. There doesn't seem to be a synchronization between both screens here or both windows because they were in different groups from the perspective of Signal R. So maybe now we have more luck. So Fox with the head and Bob and Bob. We join each other. We start. It's working. Now we see. I choose to be Alice or um, pressing Alice key, and we can see everything is working as expected. Um, Next question is not working because we have like mouse click and not key. This is something we will fix. So it's like move to next question. Here we are. And we're modifying it a bit. We're modifying by saying Boolean key pressed. And if key pressed equals false, we want to send um, our key pressed where we need a keyboard event args. It's not very friendly to have a keyboard event args. So we copy this thing. We want to have like only the key. We're sending the key. And again, these methods just await key pressed with args dot key. So new functionality without really copying things. So key pressed, and I want to press enter, and should be await and should be async. And after it returns, so we don't execute this thing. So now, which would increase in an error while handling. Now we set true. And here for the button, we need to change something. We need to add like an entirely handling, and it was clicked, so keyboard is false, and changed. So savings, recompiling, and here we are. Here we are again, just reloading. Alice, cookie, Bob, definitely not cookie. Joining, starting, pressing a key, selecting a question, pressing a key, selecting a question, next question. So it's moving on. Also, another things we have fixed. So now it's interesting. Here I'm Alice. I can use my player key to send something. Here I'm Bob. I can use my player key. Okay, also fine. But what if I'm at Bob's window and pressing Alice key? So now I could answer in a way of like an Alice way, which I don't want to. So yeah. Um, so we need to fix these. We need to fix that um, we handle only something if only handling our own player key. So this is something we already have done, not have done, but in a way that here I want to handle my key press. So everything here is fine, here is fine, here is fine. It is this thing where we determine which should be the active index and when should be countdown freeze. And um, here we can see we have um, here we are. This is when we found someone is responsible for the key. And still interesting if he's the active player or not. And I need to prevent the player from becoming active if it is not um, their key. So we do differently. I'm just adding another thing. If we have found the right one, then I can ask if session is current player of resp item dot key. Yeah. Is our index if is current player equals false. I want to. I mean, we can say continue and then the loop will end. So I say continue to item dot key. So is current player. Okay, so we missing this method here, which is something we could generate, or in this case, just adding scrolling. Long things we have written already. So public void, not void boolean, is current player and want to have like index. So we get like copy it here, say player like index and only, and now we return player dot id equals my saved player id. We save our changes. We're going back here, we're starting a new game of our beloved characters Alice and Bob, and we join the lobby, we start the game. So let's say I'm here at Alice window and I want to push Alice key, still working. I'm here at Bob's window, I can still push Bob's and I still can. I should go to the next question. For some reasons. Okay, there's another thing here. So now I'm trying to use Bob's key, which is interesting because you can see now Bob here is active, but I pushed it here. So it's not maybe not the right position here to change it. Or we have made a more general mistake. You can also see like yeah, so it's not what we expected. Um, so let's think about how we could solve it. We're going back to our game session page. So we have done this thing where we say active player index and countdown freeze. So player has already answered. It's also very interesting. Um, so again, all what we have to do, we need to prevent them from becoming an active player, which would mean if we're sending still the key, that's why we seen that Bob was selected when Alice pushed the key. So now it's, as I said, the interesting thing where we need to place this part of logic here. And yeah, so we still need to have the active player. So what we would need to prevent actually is the key from ever being sent out. It's not that we need to prevent handling it because handling works well. We need to prevent this key will ever be sent. So um, I'm using this one as a kind of template. A template always means we can find better ways. And we're going to our key pressed event args method. So we're going back to args.key and we say like we just send key, and only in this case where someone pushes a key which is related to a game session key, and this key is not the current player. Only in this case we want to set it to false. And now we say if send key equals true. Formatting, saving, and see if these fixed our problem. Reloading. reloading Alice and Bob on the same picture. Try it again. Start a game. I'm Alice. I can hit my player key. Unfortunately, it's for some reason not synchronized anymore. I think I copy it here. I made a mistake of copying it and not removing it from the kind of our first try. So Alice, Bob, join lobbies, start a game. I'm choosing an answer. I'm choosing an answer. I can still now it's interesting. I'm at Alice window. I try to push Bob's key and nothing happens. I'm at Bob's window. I try to push, nothing happens. But if I choosing the right one, it's working as expected. Okay. And as you can see here, we have now our quiz in a multiplayer version. And yeah, it's kind of our episode go today. And it is. And because you have seen the slides so often, this episode, let's see them again. And let's make a quick walkthrough what if you were able to see it again. I'm so deeply sorry. I'm so deeply sorry for it that I haven't seen it. I was into and yeah, if I'm into the flow, it's like for me really um really hard to see to get out. Anyway, um yeah. So as I said, in preparation of this episode, I tried different approaches how we could do differently. And I'm ending up with what you've seen today, like reusing a lot of our existing code inside the Blazor application and just using Signal R as a kind of way to move these to communicate these key presses or these events through the system. And we have also seen during the development or during these a lot of tiny mistakes are there and also a lot of some drawbacks like if I which key should be sent or not. Um, I think we have also seen the limitations here. So while these approaches works fine for us in these circumstances, as I said, it's a shortcut and shortcut always, I really say always, comes with a price tag. And these price tags are usually consequences, and sometimes we can face these consequences, okay, and sometimes consequences can be devastating. So just a reminder of that we need to evaluate the risk involved with a shortcut. And also, um, I think we have seen in some cases our classes have grown. We have to scroll through until we find things. Our names not not always consistent or even good. Um, so we see this would be now a good starting point to reflect our application. So to let our application do the same thing again, but with a less with a more with less mess in our code. But to do so, we would need to have more, or not more, we need to have at least tests in place to make sure that we don't change the functionality here. And yeah, so despite um, my mistake with not sharing the correct window, during the preparation, I decided that this will be the last episode in the kind of first batch. Um, it's mainly related to, I think, the next stage, next step I had in mind, like adding the possibility to save like a high score and everything. It's a lot of work to do, and I think it's not really, and some of these work are re repetitive in a way. I mean, reputation it's good for practice, it's good for learning, but it's not really entertaining. It's not really a good place to educate because this is something you usually do on your own and getting a lot of insights. And besides, along the track, um, I've learned a lot, a lot. I have so many ideas in mind of potentially improves this thing here. And yeah, so I decided it's time for a fresh start. And with this last episode, now we have multiplayer capabilities. So we delivered a kind of our initial promise from nothing to a multiplayer game, even if we know there are a lot of flaws in it. And yeah, so I just want to say it again and again. I'm so thankful and I'm appreciated a lot to have you or to be with you on this journey. And yeah, it was the last episode of BlazQ in this type of format here. So what will be the next episode or next project? I kind of enjoy what I'm doing here, even when I'm not sharing code, because I haven't checked twice. Um, so I want to continue these kind of live streaming events because I like them really a lot. And what I have in mind is like to transforming it in a more interactive, chatty, chatty way. So saying like I'm had like a meetup. I know this term is overused, especially in the COVID terms, but just a place somewhere we can talk about Blazor's technology, where we can do dedicated sessions. For example, one will be around authentication, one could be like render tree in dev or all these things. And yeah, so having just a kind of yeah, less educational and more communicative in a way. Yeah, I have no timeline for it. It's just I hope to start maybe end of May, um, March, April, start of May. Um, yeah. So yeah, as I said, it was a lovely journey so far. As always, questionnaire, and if you're still interested to give feedback. And as I said, and I said it often, and I will said it even more times. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate your time. And for, it was always an experiment because I didn't expect it to get it right in the first instance. Um, but I was prepared for a kind of failure in a sense of how it will be received by the recipients or audience. But I'm deeply impressed about the reactions. I'm deeply impressed about also how many things are, are still kind of new to me. I've learned so much from perspective of presentation, entertainment, technical perspective, even if I wasn't able to share my code for this episode. Um, yeah, and then I can say, for me, this experiment has been a success. It has been a huge success, and I'm I'm happy that I've done it. I'm happy that I've found enough confidence to try it, to be out there, to be vulnerable, to be judged, or to be potentially judged by others. And yeah, it was a great time. So yeah, thank you all. I wish you a lovely, lovely day, and hopefully we'll see us soon. So yeah, bye.